Good morning, everybody. Good to see y'all. I wanted to take just a moment here to recognize the events that happened yesterday. Just thought I'd speak on that just a couple minutes here about the violence that occurred against some of our legislators yesterday. The loss of a life of one of the legislators and her husband, and then also another politician legislator who was injured, as well as his wife. So just wanted to express my sadness for the situation. It's, I think, tough on us all to hear about news like this. I think we have a feeling of wanting to send out our wishes for peace and healing for the family and everybody who's involved. And when I was thinking about that, everybody who's involved, it occurred to me that this is everybody, really, the extended family, and it just goes out in all directions. For that feeling, I think that we can find to really recognize that this impacts us all, and that there's things that we can do to help promote peace, to try to take up practices that help us be peace itself and to have that affect the world. So I came up with my talk a little bit before these events, so it's not directly related, but I think there's some overlap here where we can maybe see some teachings in Buddhism that help us uh, clarify a little bit about how we can really reflect on our own situation and bring a warm-hearted practice and take up an activity of actually expressing peace in the world. So I think it's possible through our efforts in different ways. So we'll investigate that a little bit here.
Okay.
Mhm.
When you were talking about it affects everybody, like I was also thinking it affects the perpetrator too.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like his whole family, him.
Yeah,
It's a big web.
yeah, probably a huge shock for the people around him
Yeah.
that they may not have thought that this was possible at all as a person. And then also I know that I have a tendency to sort of distance myself from, people like that,
Yeah.
or when it happens, I'll end up kind of pointing fingers, saying that sort of this group is um, responsible. But in further reflecting on that, I noticed that I am a part of the dynamic in which politics happens. So obviously, there's some real aspects about tracking these people down and bringing them to justice. But then for me to think about how maybe I'm doing things that are a little bit unhealthy, just, how I talk to other people and try to resolve differences and things. So I think it's healthy for us to think about the things that we can do, open our hearts, be honest with ourselves about being open with people and not judgmental and so forth. And I was, for the talk, thinking about, just to switch gears a little bit, but I think it's related in some ways. What I'll be talking about here, as I was saying, a lot of different things that come up in our life, including that which we would call, for lack of better term, spiritual understanding. I think it's pretty easy for us to get into a mode where we're just interpreting what our life is or what we think of spirituality. And we end up kind of getting in a mode of making assessments about our situation. I mean, this could include politics and all kinds of different things. So we end up making determinations, often find ourselves perhaps creating ideas of what we should and shouldn't do. So here I'm kind of thinking of what we would call spiritual practice and not notice that we may be kind of judging ourselves a little bit in that practice in doing so. So we may be kind of thinking of what is better or sort of objectives that we might have when we're kind of sizing up our situation. It's just a very normal, natural thing to do in all kinds of different areas of life. But I thought I would mention here that Zen is actually quite different than that. Zen is actually just to really know what we're doing. It's to be attuned to what's going on. And this is to be watching our mind. So as you can see, it's quite different than a perspective of making judgments or assessments. Zen is just about clearly knowing what we're doing, what's going on. So as a just a bit of an example, um, maybe we'll have different ideas that come up. Um, thinking could come up, or maybe the notion that we shouldn't be thinking. I know that is sometimes attributed to meditation, where that's kind of what we think it is, that we're supposed to stop thinking. But in this case, um, the practice, again, is not about making an assessment about whether we think we should be thinking or not, or making an assessment about trying to not think, but it's actually just to notice what's going on. So notice the thinking is happening. So it's not reliant on judgment at all. It's just thinking is rising. Zen is to know what is happening. It's to know that this notion of I want thoughts to go away, it's just simply notice that. It's very simple and straightforward. So it's about taking care of our life and noticing. This, I think, is in pretty clear relief when we are in meditation to notice. Um, well, the instruction is very simple in the meditation instruction we give here, just to follow the breath. Very simple and straightforward. So we're resuming awareness just here and now. So we're meditating. And then perhaps there can be a bit of a inclination to that we want our mind to be calm. That could easily we sort of phase into that sort of orientation a little bit. We want it to be a little bit different. And again, Zen is not about judging what's happening at all. It's just noticing that that's happening. That's all. Very straightforward, as I was saying. And then in noticing that we may be trying to do something, then we just come back. Actually, in noticing, we're instantly back. So to notice is to know what we're doing. It's just to really be here, to live our life. So it's a practice of non-judgment. It's a practice of finding even-mindedness, just in a very natural practice. So it's a practice of realization of what our life is. Um, so this is not about not thinking, but just to know when thinking arises, or just to notice this, which is in some sense, if thinking is just coming and going very naturally, and we're even-mindedly just watching that, how it is like a cloud that's forming and then just dissipates very naturally. That is, in a sense, non-thinking. If we don't need to attach to that idea. Actually, in Buddhism, thinking is one of the senses. So we normally think of five senses And in Buddhism, thinking is this number six, or as part of the senses. So I think that's a helpful teaching in that it um, kind of, what would you say, it it's thinking has such a charge to it when we are considering what it is and we think about how we get caught up in thought and how it seems like a real culprit in a lot of ways. But in Buddhism, in putting it as a part of the senses, you can see that as any sense would happen, you might be drawn to sight or hearing. If you're out in the woods and then that smell of the skunk just hits you, everything's drawn to that smell. And um, in this practice, we can see when we slow down a little bit, we can see how much thinking is dominant in our life too, which is perfectly fine. But I bring this up in reference to seeing thinking as not such a substantial thing. It actually is very changeable, it's fluid. If we sort of pin thinking down as a problem, then we can accidentally kind of make give it substance in a way that nothing in this world has. What we actually find in reality is complete flux and flow. So it's the same thing with thinking, sort of this image of the cloud forming and then dissipating. Um, and it can just, we're human. This is what happens. Thinking comes and goes. And there's nothing actually behind the thought. When we're really caught up, it really kind of seems like there is. It seems like that thing that we want to affect, the objective, is very real inside and outside. Our sense of self is strong, all based on this idea. But actually, thinking is completely insubstantial. There's no absolute truth that it is communicating at all. It's just a phenomena that shows up, just like any other phenomena. Yeah, Andrew, go ahead.
When you were reminding us about the, thoughts or considered a sense,
Hmm.
I just was thinking about it going, God, that's really a good thing to remember because, like one of the things I always feel vexed by is where is this coming from?
Hmm.
But I don't do the same thing when I smell. I'm smelling. Or if I see, I'm like, oh yeah, I have eyes, so I'm obviously going to see something right now, right? Or
Yep.
when I feel myself here, I'm like, well, I got my feet here, my
Hmm.
butt's here. I don't think about why am I feeling,
No,
right?
unless
But
we get like philosophical about it, but which is
yeah,
not too
but
often.
in
But
day-to-day
thinking,
life,
yeah, we do really try to, yeah,
oh man, every
try to
time a thought
identify.
comes up when I meditate, I'm like,
Yeah.
hmm.
What's the source? And then how can I kind of cut off that source or
Yeah.
whatever idea?
And to kind of remember that it's just like you said, like it's just a phenomenon.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, all right.
Yeah, I really appreciate the neutrality that is, I think, communicated in that particular
Yeah,
teaching, that we don't need to find a source.
yeah.
And it doesn't have to be as weighty as we maybe attribute
Right,
about that.
like smell, there's no weight to smell really, unless it's a skunk.
Hmm. Yeah.
But if you're just out and about, you're like, I smell pine. And then that's it.
Hmm.
But thoughts can seem so big,
Yeah,
especially when thoughts come up where you're like, I don't like that. Where'd that come from?
exactly.
Weird. Sorry.
Yeah, no, appreciate it.
Yeah.
See, David's got a question too, or a comment.
Uh, it says in the tension, trusting the heart one, uh, do not flee from the six dusts, in other words, the six senses. Indeed, not hating the world of the senses is identical with true enlightenment.
Mhm.
That's great. Yeah, that fits perfectly with what we're talking about. So not hating the world of the senses. In a lot of ways, what we think of as the five senses are, they don't have the challenging quality that we find with thinking. So if it's just sight or, just these senses operating on their own, they, there's no challenge of kind of grasping an aversion that we find in Buddhism. Buddhism's kind of helping us understand that the thinking is a little bit different here also, but that we not vilify or kind of pin anything down too strongly in that way. So in the end, this is about not being tossed about by thinking at all. So just being able to set that down, let that kind of neutral quality come to the surface a little bit. So in practicing being here for whatever is happening, it could be all kinds of different situations. The formal sitting, um, or a complex job situation, or protesting. There's, basically anything that it is, we can really just know what our situation is, be present, be alert to life as it's happening. So it's not only being alert to everyday life, but it's also being, as I think Suzuki Roshi, the author of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, talked about, being ready for thinking, or being ready for the ideas and notions and predilections that we have, because they will come up. We're human beings. We have opinions that arise pretty quickly at times. And they do, pop up at any time. I think another helpful thing is to notice when these things arise, it's out of a whole field of conditions. So whatever is coming up, whatever opinion maybe that I have about something, it's connected with all kinds of different things, my upbringing, um, my gender and history, ancestry, all kinds of different aspects. So I think it's helpful to keep that in mind as well. It sort of helps contextualize what's going on. And whatever it is, complex job situation or sitting meditation, it could be what's called monkey mind. So when our mind's just kind of going crazy, whatever we're doing, again, like we say, we can try to push the thought away. I was thinking actually, thoughts are a little bit like a cat. It's like the cat comes up to you, and the people who don't like cats, they like try to shoo the cat away, but then the cat really wants to sit on your lap. So like thoughts are like that. You're just like, no. And then it's like, no, I want to rub up against you for the next half hour. And then, yeah, the people who really like cats, then they're like, no, thanks.
Right.
So whether it's kind of this wild monkey mind, or the serene moment on the beach, neither one is better at all. We can actually, from either one of these, we can return to a clear understanding by really knowing what's going on. So, it could be a really heated conversation. We can actually return to the clarity of understanding what's happening here. So this is about meeting our life face to face. There's a lot of different ways that we get distracted, or we can distract ourselves, a lot of things that draw our attention, which in meditation, it kind of shows that meditation is a real opportunity. So we're simplifying our environment to a bare minimum. We're making it as easy as possible to really come back, to notice, to be attuned to life as it's happening, to really know what's happening here. So it's a rare chance to really meet this immediacy of being face to face with our life. So I think, as we all know, meditation is a very the important part of what practice is. So we kind of learn about practice, but then we do practice as well. They're pretty much right there hand in hand. And I think of satisfaction, sort of started to talk out by looking at different ways that we approach life. You know, we try to maybe kind of tweak things and so forth. But in thinking about satisfaction, it basically just either if it falls in our lap or not, pretty much. I mean, it can fall in our lap. You know, that serene moment on the beach might be, you know, just a perfect situation that we really are desiring. But really, we're mostly trying to navigate towards satisfaction. You know, it's, we're putting energy in trying to set up that situation that we really are looking for. But no matter what we do, I think we'll have difficulty in choosing what to do. You know, no matter what our situation is, there's going to be this difficulty in deciding how to make this happen. There's always going to be a question of where to go, you know, and pursuing satisfaction. There'll always be this kind of nagging quality about, you know, how to do it. How is it? It's and then satisfaction is kind of like you find one thing and then you notice there's something a little bit extra that, you know, you're satisfied for a second and then you want a little something else. It's like that when magicians are pulling that handkerchief out of their their cuff, it's just like keeps going forever.
Turtles all the way down.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so in the practice, we're just setting it down. If thinking is coming, we can just gently set that down. Not, you know, the inflection of this talk is to kind of communicate a gentleness or noticing that setting something down is of the nature of noticing. So it's not trying to do anything through our will or try to make something happen, but just dedicating ourselves to being attuned and um, and aware. And I think in setting it down, that's one way of seeing the different challenges that come up in life, that there's always a kind of a complete picture to what's happening. And in Taoism, you see this pretty clearly in the teachings of like the yin yang teachings, where it talks about the interdependence of, say, hot and cold, high and low, but then also difficult things in life and then the joyous things in life. They are very much, you know, you can't pull one out and just have the other remain. It's just not how the dynamic of relative life works. The other day, we noticed, my wife Kate and I noticed how just outside the side door was a couple of cardinals. They're kind of flittering about. We were wondering what was going on. There's some making some noise. And then we looked a little more closely, and there was a little baby cardinal out there that was sitting on the fence. And it became pretty clear that it probably fell out of the nest, and it was too young to be out and about, you know, exploring the world. But both cardinal parents were there. They're doing their job. You know, they're kind of trying to protect the little baby bird, bringing it food. So basically, they're making the world its nest. They're making do with a difficult situation. And, you know, it's easy to pin things down as being something that we just want to get rid of. But the fact is, these things happen in our life. And I think, like in the natural world, we can see this activity of just immediate response. where those cardinal parents are just taking care of what they needed to take care of. And it looked like they were doing a pretty successful job too, because they were bringing it food. The little bird had found a little space to sit where it was kind of protected. So it could end up working out fine in the end. So a Zen practice um, or everyday life can really be based on continually renewing or being reacquainted with this real-time life that's going on. That's something that we can definitely do. That's what this practice is. Part of the practice, as I was saying, is sitting, and when we sit down, we don't do anything. That's what the practice is. You sit down and there's nothing, there's nothing there. There's nothing to entertain you. So, and it reminds me of Kaylee was talking on Wednesday about the experience of sitting, and then all of a sudden an ant kind of emerged and it was crawling up the side of the heating vent and then sort of like slipping down. It's like, oh yeah, finally entertainment. This is great. This is, or what did you say? It was pretty exciting. Yeah, it doesn't take much in meditation to be like, oh, wow. But the practice is just to be here and to just be patient in this moment. Because again, life is face to face right here. It's actually, we can live this fullness of our life right here without, and it's easier without distractions, but it may not be so easy. I think of animals who are very patient. The blue heron in Minnesota, when you watch it hunting, it wades through shallow water. And then at times it's like a stone, completely still with its beak down, waiting for something to swim in front of it. So it's like completely still. And then it'll maybe walk a few steps and reposition itself. Or the cuttlefish, you know, that is like a squid that sort of it comes to the bottom of the ocean and then sort of puffs up some of the sand around it, but then it also changes the color of its skin to match its surroundings, and then it just waits. You know, it's a master of patience. Or the crocodile is um, it lives this way too. So it's still and waiting. And apparently, I heard that a crocodile can live for over a year without eating, which is incredible. I've never heard that about I didn't think that, that would be possible at all. I mean, for hibernating animals, maybe, um, but some sort of beautiful images there of patience and diligence, kind of an inspiration for us, I think. And there's certainly practitioners now and of the past that show us this same steadfast quality. And they're encouraging us now to take up practice. So sitting is just to not do anything specifically. It's just to resume our life that's already alive and happening right now. So we get this chance to actually live life directly in meditation or our everyday life. Suzuki Roshi, I found a couple quotes here that I thought were pretty nice just to end the talk here. And this is from a unedited transcript. He says, so the English is different than it's not perfect English here, obviously, but he says, whatever you do, even though you do not do anything, your true nature is in incessant work. Your true nature is in incessant work. So this incessant working that's happening. He says, when we sit, we call it our inmost nature. Let it work. You don't do anything, but let your true nature work by itself. So if we're walking from the car into the center here, and then we hear kind of like a buzzing sound, and we see that bee over in the flower, sort of rooting around in there for pollen. In this moment, there is no other way. We can see that when we just allow experience to be what it is. It's just that sound of the bee right there. There's nothing else. Suzuki calls this wisdom seeks for wisdom. And that's what Zen practice is. So this is continually, so that's his quote, unquote. So this is continually refamiliarizing ourselves with actually what is truly familiar. So it's something that's not foreign to us. We're just coming back to what we truly know in each moment. The noticing right here and now is the opening of everything. And we can, really come back to this, really put some energy in this, set up our life in a way that this is possible through formal practice and paying attention in our life. That's all I have today. I don't know if anybody has any further comments or questions or anything that might be on your mind recently.
I didn't see an ant, but I saw a little spider this morning.
Oh, yeah?
That was fascinating. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of legs there.
Yeah.
How do they
Really tiny.
coordinate that?
Yeah. He was over there last time I saw him.
Yeah, Mary.
Went skating.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say something like you should be ready for thinking? Can you say more about that, please?
Sure. If I can remember where it's from, it's actually a Katagiri quote or a Suzuki Roshi quote. The readiness, wisdom is the readiness of the mind, I think he said. And yeah, that's from, that'd be from Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. Is it Readiness, I think is the name of the chapter. And for me, it's, I think it kind of gets to this kind of flavor of these other quotes too, about not necessarily needing to try too hard to try to create a certain type of situation. Readiness seems like more of a yeah, it's just like present for what's happening, just presence basically. I don't know, do you have any thoughts on it? Did it kind of catch your attention a little bit? I really like it.
Yeah, sure. So like, I'm not sure I can put it into words, but if something comes up and you start thinking about it, right? So like in meditation, for example, so you're talking about, yeah, I don't know. That's why I asked.
Yeah, in meditation, it is, yeah, it's kind of a usual Suzuki quote where part of you is asking, what does that mean exactly? But it maybe for me is communicating a feeling of even-mindedness, like a bit of a antidote, so to speak, about defining thinking as good or bad, but just being ready for whatever happens and not needing to make any assessment. So, I mean, it seems like the term readiness carries that somehow, that we're ready for a breeze to come by. If we're not ready for it, it's just like all these different, the sound of the bird or whatever is happening. We're not ready for it. We don't even notice it. So it's,
So continue to watch.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's basically really what this all boils down to. But yeah, thanks. That one kind of stuck with me in terms of Suzuki Roshi quotes.
Yeah, that quote stuck with me too, and Mary, just like it did for you, just kind of popped out because that's what life is being ready, and sometimes we're not, sometimes we're so busy being distracted somewhere else. But I was talking with somebody about a tendency that I have had in my life and that she struggled with as well, which is along the lines of some of what you were talking about in your talk, which is trying to make conditions so that you are ready, right? And then she talks about how she spends all of this time preparing.
Yeah.
A lot of
Preparation is
time-
different than readiness. Yeah.
So the preparation is like overkill, and then it never turns out the way that she was preparing for it. And I said, that's the difference between getting ready and being ready,
Yeah.
And I think we spend a lot of our time getting ready. And while we're doing that, life just keeps coming and we're not ready for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's helpful
yeah.
to see how we can make it into a structure kind of our, yeah, I was like, I wasn't prepared for that. It's like you probably had an idea what you wanted it to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Anything else on Zoom too? Okay, you said Cindy or?
Cindy.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Jed. Thanks for the talk. Could you read? There was another quote by Suzuki that you mentioned. I think it was maybe a little bit later in your talk that you said came from maybe an unpublished manuscript. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, yep. Did you want to repeat that or the
Yeah,
source?
yes. If you could, yeah, if you could read that again, that would be great.
Sure. And this is from, I regularly go into the transcripts of unpublished talks by Suzuki, even from the stuff that's in books, because I kind of like the unedited quirkiness, and there's kind of a sparkle to it without having any corrections, English corrections to it. But this is from the talk, which they titled Wisdom Seeks for Wisdom. So if you search on the San Francisco Zen Center website, you'll find an archive. And then Suzuki says, whatever you do, even though you do not do anything, your true nature is in incessant working. And then the other one was, when we sit, we call it our inmost nature. Let it work. You do not do anything, but let your true nature work by itself.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Sure. Okay, thank you very much.